Welcome to HFY Sci-Fi Stories. Don't forget to like and subscribe so you don't miss new stories. He'd sworn to preserve life, but fate decreed her existence would seal his end. Vidya, a world reduced to ash and ruin, was his grim testament. Combat medic Caden, his frame racked with pain, navigated the wreckage of a pulverized transport, the tortured groans of twisted metal a symphony to his agony. The once proud vessel was now a jagged maw against a bleeding sky. For 8 agonizing hours, he had been the sole living soul within a 100-kilometer radius. His squad, 12 souls, 12 brothers, had been brutally extinguished in a sudden, savage ambush, leaving him isolated beneath the unforgiving gaze of twin suns, their shadows stretching like skeletal fingers across a landscape of utter despair. The air, thick with the acrid perfume of burning fuel and flesh, seared his lungs with every ragged inhalation. His body screamed in protest from injuries he dared not address. A searing gash across his brow, a shoulder wrenched from its socket and reset with a strangled cry, 3 fractured ribs that throbbed with each labored movement. Yet Caden pressed on, propelled by a desperate thirst for redemption. He dragged himself towards the last functioning comm unit, where Rico, his steadfast comrade since their academy days, had been positioned. The device crackled with static, then a faint whisper, "Kai, I can't." Then, an abyss of silence. Rico, gone. No, no, no! Caden's bloodied fist slammed the comm, a primal roar of anguish. Not you too. I should have been there. He clutched Rico's dog tags, their metal still radiating warmth. The engraved words, catching the brutal sunlight, read, "Keep them alive until they can save themselves." Their shared creed through arduous medical training. He had failed. As a medic, as a friend. The Hippocratic Oath, a forgotten luxury in this hellscape. A planet where even the stones seemed to wish him dead, where the very air tasted of venom. But it was etched onto his soul, as indelible as the scars adorning his hands. Hands that had mended hundreds, yet faltered for the 12 who mattered most today. Hands that couldn't save Rico. Then his scanner pinged, a faint, intermittent life signal. A curse escaped his lips, but he followed. He knew the brutal calculus of war zones. Survival demanded self-preservation. But that wasn't him. That wasn't the oath he'd embraced. And he would not fail again. "This one," he whispered, his grip tightening on Rico's dog tags. "This one, I save." "Damn it all," he grunted, adjusting the crude dressing on his forehead as he pinpointed the signal's source. "Just once. I wish my conscience would take a vacation." The signal guided him through a tableau of devastation. Not human constructs, but the graceful, almost organic contours of alien vessels. Their once iridescent blue apertures, now charred and fractured, toward the crimson sky in dark, viscous pools that Caden recognized with chilling certainty as blood, but not of human origin. It was denser, darker, shimmering with an opalescent sheen that fractured the light into mesmerizing patterns. At the heart of a scorched clearing, amidst the debris and the fallen warriors of her kind, he found her. A blue-skinned warrior, her beauty as stark and lethal as Vidya itself. Her armor, remnants clinging to her form like molten obsidian, pulsed with integrated technology beyond his grasp. Her face, framed by what appeared to be metallic dreadlocks, was a mask of controlled suffering. High cheekbones, a regal nose, and lips drawn into a tight line, stifling screams. Around her neck, a crystal amulet caught the harsh sunlight, a fleeting echo of Rico's dog tags. The connection was illogical, but in his grief-addled mind, it felt like a sign. She lay impaled by a spear, but this was no ordinary weapon. It seemed alive. Dull crimson pulses flickered along its coral-like surface, and the wound it inflicted didn't bleed, but throbbed with a dark, malevolent energy. The spear shaft vibrated subtly, as if drawing breath. She was conscious. Her amber eyes, pools of unbearable agony, fixed on him. Those eyes, unlike anything he had ever witnessed, possessed vertical pupils within irises that swirled with the shifting iridescence of oil on water. "Leave, human," she rasped in fractured universal, her voice a silken rasp against gravel. "My penance is not for your gaze." Caden ignored her. His medical scanner shrieked, struggling to comprehend her physiology. Unknown species, unknown trauma, unknown prognosis. All he registered was her suffering, and that was enough. He set down his pack, stripping off his gloves. He saw a wound. He was a medic. Nothing else held consequence. "I'm going to help you," he stated plainly, his voice steady despite his thundering heart. "Try to stay still." He knelt, his hands closing around the spear shaft. It felt warm, alive, pulsing with a subtle, sentient resistance that sent a shiver down his spine. "No, more than that," she choked out, a scream of desperate terror ripping through her. "Don't touch it." Her body arched in defiance of the unimaginable pain. "You don't understand." But Caden's decision was made. In his mind, it was meant to be a routine extraction, simply another foreign object to remove. Caden's ingrained training took over, positioning him for perfect leverage. He clamped both hands around the spear's shaft, taking a deep, shuddering breath. "On 3, he rasped, the words a silent mantra more for himself than for the wounded woman before him. 1, 2. He heaved. The resistance was colossal, as if the spear had embedded itself into the very heart of the planet. Caden's muscles shrieked in protest, his already cracked ribs lancing him with white-hot pain. With a primal, gut-wrenching effort that seemed to rend both his flesh and his very soul, he tore the spear free from her ravaged body. Time itself seemed to halt. The spear, now clutched in his trembling grip, pulsed ominously, radiating hunger. The warrior woman's eyes, wide with disbelief, held his gaze, and then, in an instant, everything irrevocably shifted. Before his astonished eyes, the gaping wound on her body began to mend, the torn, ravaged flesh knitting together with impossible, sickening speed. In moments, only smooth, unblemished blue skin remained where death had loomed. The agony in her gaze morphed to stunned disbelief, then pure horror. She struggled to a sitting position, her trembling fingers touching the now perfect skin where a mortal wound had been, and Caden screamed. He looked down, his gaze drawn to his own torso where shrapnel had ripped through his body armor. There, blossoming hideously, was a perfect mirroring replica of her vanished wound. A wet, organic sound, not of tearing flesh, but like meat willingly separating from bone, echoed. Then the stench assaulted him. Ozone, sharp as an electrical short circuit, mixed with an alien, sickly sweet odor that made his stomach churn. The wound on his chest pulsed and writhed as if it possessed a malevolent life of its own. The same ragged gash, the same throbbing dark pulsation, and the pain. Oh gods, the pain. A searing agony so absolute the world dissolved into blinding white flame. It felt as if every nerve in his body had been plunged into corrosive acid, his very soul torn apart, cell by agonizing cell. The spear slipped from his numb, unresponsive fingers. He pitched forward, collapsing onto the crimson soil of Viridia, his vision rapidly tunneling. The last image branded onto his mind, before oblivion claimed him, was the warrior woman's face, mesmerized by her own flawless skin, touching it with bewildered awe before her eyes met his, horror blossoming as the terrifying truth dawned. The last sound that pierced the encroaching darkness was her terrified whisper, "What have you done?" Consciousness clawed its way back to Caden, heralded by searing waves of agony. Every ragged breath, a fresh descent into hell. Each thudding heartbeat, brutal pulses of torment through his entire being. He lay on something surprisingly soft, perhaps animal skins, within a dim, enclosed space smelling distinctly of damp earth and unfamiliar, pungent herbs. "You're awake. Good." The voice unmistakably hers was different now, clearer, more precise, an accent like flowing water smoothing around the universal language. Caden attempted to push himself upright, but the slightest movement unleashed a devastating surge of pain, forcing him back with a desperate gasp. His hand instinctively flew to his chest, finding not a raw wound, but a slick, viscous poultice. The substance felt cool, almost soothing, against his feverish skin, yet offered no reprieve from the relentless agony. "Don't move," she commanded, stepping into his blurred field of vision. "The Cathar will feed more intensely if you struggle." She had transformed. Clean, her metallic dreadlocks now adorned with small crystalline beads that glittered softly in the eerie glow of a strange bioluminescent lamp from the rock ceiling. They were in a cave, he realized, a natural formation subtly adapted for shelter. Despite the overwhelming pain, Caden's training resurfaced, driving him to reach for his medical scanner. He passed the device over the gaping wound, which pulsed under the poultice. The scanner emitted a low, distressed whine before flashing an ominous message. "Error. Biological anomaly. Tissue unstable." "What is this thing?" he rasped, his voice raw with fear and confusion. He pulled a suture kit from his medpack, but when he attempted to thread the filament through the edges of the wound, it passed through his flesh as if it were smoke, the ragged edges immediately separating again. "Damn it!" he snarled in furious frustration, flinging the needle aside. All his advanced training, all his technology, worthless against this simple, yet impossible, wound. He felt helpless, useless. "Your instruments are worthless against this," she stated, her gaze a mixture of detached sympathy and grim satisfaction as she observed his futile attempts. "Now you understand." She moved closer, gently pushing his hands away from the pulsing horror. "This is not an injury. It is hunger." She knelt beside him, methodically mixing phosphorescent moss with the glistening saliva of some small creature she'd apparently caught. "This won't heal it. Nothing will. But it will calm it, slow its progress." As she carefully applied the concoction, Caden felt a subtle numbing begin, not enough to erase the torment, but enough to render it marginally bearable. "My name is Lyra," she said, settling back on her heels. "I was the commander of the elite Void Phantoms, the finest warriors of my generation, and I had been sentenced." Her voice trembled with a profound mix of horror and guilt. Her eyes were not on him, but fixed on the monstrous wound on his chest. Her wound. "It is the Cathar," she explained, her slender blue fingers hovering inches above the pulsing darkness on his flesh, never quite daring to touch. "The Painter. It is not a wound, but a parasitic entity. A living hunger. Not a weapon, but a sentence etched into flesh. A symbiotic curse for traitors and oath-breakers." Each word Lyra spoke was a blade, deepening the wounds. The Cathar didn't kill, it prolonged torment, feeding on the eternal anguish of an unhealing sore. A living death, a punishment in a society valuing honor. Then horror bloomed in her eyes. This wasn't true for him. "Your body," she whispered, voice hushed, "is rejecting the symbiont." Her hand met his fevered brow. "The Cathar is meant for my kind. Decades. But a human." Her metallic dreadlocks caught the dim light. "It's consuming you too fast." "How long?" Caden's tone remained steady. Lyra's amber eyes met his. "Days, perhaps a week. The symbiont feasts on life force released through pain. Your body can't replace it quickly enough." Caden received the news with the detachment of a medic. "Then we haven't much time." "For what?" he asked. "To find Vorlog," he stated. The design of this punishment was undoubtedly his. "He must know the cure." Lyra's expression darkened. "Vorlog didn't design the Cathar. He merely perfected it." Her voice drifted. "He was my mentor, a warrior. He taught me honor, everything. Then he betrayed you." "He believes he saved our people," she said, her voice bitter. "From my weakness, my mercy. Sacrifice a settlement I refused. He deemed me unfit." "So," Caden realized, "this is about more than clearing your name. It's about 2 visions for your people." "Yes," she whispered, "and now your life hangs in the balance." She held out her hand. "We must hurry if we are to save you." The Deadlands. Obsidian plains, spires clawing at the sky. Nothing grew there, save death and them. Lyra led, economical, a predator conserving energy. Caden followed, step by agonizing step. Each day, the Cathar burrowed deeper, unleashing pain. Yet he pushed on. They were ghosts, hunted. Hidden during the day, they emerged at night, guided by 3 moons. Lyra, her knowledge of this world, found water and food. She taught him navigation and predator tracks, reptilian creatures with translucent skin hunting. "Shadecrawler," she explained. "Territorial females, avoid this area." A hissing erupted. Caden froze, hand instinctively reaching for his makeshift weapon. "Don't move," Lyra whispered, tensing. "It hunts by energy." The Cathar, a beacon of his pain, drew the predators. A wave of agony, he stifled a groan. The crawler, nearly 2 meters long, emerged, translucent, glowing in the moonlight. It moved towards Caden. Lyra's eyes widened. Without hesitation, she drew her blade, slicing her own hand. Blood, the color of midnight. The creature paused, confused, her bleeding hand a second target. The crawler hesitated, shifting its course, drawn to the new, gentler energy. Lyra circled back once clear, rejoining Caden behind a rocky outcrop. "The wound," she murmured, securing her injured hand. "It leaves a phantom ache in its host. I feel it like a missing limb. When I experience pain, It generates a similar, albeit weaker, energy signature. Kaidan regarded her with dawning comprehension. You used yourself as bait, he stated, a slight shrug acknowledging the sacrifice. A small hurt to avert a greater one. The Cathar had woven them together in ways they were only beginning to grasp. He had also awakened in her the true meaning of compassion. Each evening, Kaidan wrestled with his agony, tending the unhealed wound on his chest. He meticulously cleaned and dressed it with the dwindling supplies from his medkit, though it offered no relief. With every touch, Lyra would recoil, her face contorting in sympathetic torment. I remember this, she whispered one night, watching him apply an antiseptic balm. They had found refuge in a cave, its walls shimmering with phosphorescent moss, casting an ethereal green glow that deepened Lyra's turquoise skin. This shared vulnerability, this echo of her own 3 years of suffering in similar shelters, had truly begun their connection. He spoke openly, revealing his military service, the loss of his squad, his deeply held oath. I joined the medical corps to alleviate suffering, he confessed, his voice low. Ironic, isn't it? Now I seem to embody it. Why did you remove the spear? She inquired, her amber eyes mirroring the cave's bioluminescence. You must have sensed something was wrong. Kaidan shrugged, a wince betraying the fresh pain that shot through his chest. I saw someone in distress. I reacted. That's all. Lyra, in turn, recounted the tale of General Vorlo, her treacherous rival who had orchestrated her downfall. She spoke of the warriors she had commanded, now convinced of her betrayal, of a mission gone disastrously wrong. Hundreds dead, and fabricated evidence painting her as the culprit. He was consumed by jealousy, she revealed, her voice distant with memory. I was born to a lesser station, yet I rose to lead the Void Phantoms. He couldn't tolerate it, but to sacrifice so many lives just to destroy me. Her fist struck the cave wall, sending a cloud of glowing moss spores into the air. He will not rest until he has silenced everyone who knows the truth. Then we must reach him first, Kaidan declared, though a sliver of doubt lingered. How can a dying man confront a powerful general? Yet an unyielding spirit within him refused to yield, perhaps bound by his oath, or perhaps by the growing connection to this alien warrior who now bore the weight of his pain. You would help me, she asked, genuine surprise coloring her tone. After all I've caused you. Kaidan met her gaze directly. What else do I have left to lose? As days bled into weeks, their bond solidified. Kaidan's condition worsened, the Cathar feeding more voraciously on his ebbing strength. Yet Lyra's presence became a different kind of sustenance. She shared tales of her world, of their intricate honor codes, and the breathtaking beauty of their crystal cities. She taught him the art of silent movement, how to decipher the desert's secrets, the very essence of survival. Every one of his pained gasps was a resonance of her own past. Every one of her ministrations, a desperate attempt to atone for a future she feared he wouldn't see. One night, seeking warmth against the desert's biting cold, Lyra's hand found his. Her skin, cooler than human norm, was smooth, yet imprinted with faint, ridge-like patterns across her entire palm. The contact sent an unexpected jolt through him. I spent 3 years dreaming of revenge, she confessed. It was my only solace through the suffering. Now that it's gone, I find myself dreaming of something else. What? Kaidan managed, his voice weakened by the day's silent ordeal. Justice, she stated simply. Not just for me, she added, squeezing his hand, but for you. I will find a way to remove the Cathar. I swear it by the 3 moons. Their pursuers caught up in Talon Canyon, a vast scar upon the planet's surface, its obsidian walls reflecting the moonlight like polished mirrors. Carelessness had betrayed them, leaving too clear a trail in their desperate search for water. The Guardians of Balance, warriors clad in ritualistic armor that shimmered and shifted with their movements, had found them. Their faces were obscured by masks resembling the skulls of ancient predators, their eyes piercing the darkness with an eerie glow. Stay behind me, Lyra commanded, ushering Kaidan into a crevice as she drew a blade fashioned from the wreckage of a downed vessel. Whatever happens, do not reveal yourself. Kaidan's desire to protest was cut short, as the Cathar unleashed a particularly brutal wave of pain, leaving him gasping and clinging to the rock for support. Lyra turned to face her former comrades, 5 of them, armed with. Wielding weapons chillingly akin to her own cursed one, they spoke a language like wind through crystal chimes, beautiful, yet piercingly sharp. I am not your enemy, Lyra pleaded, switching to Universal for Caden. "Vorlog betrayed us, sacrificing our warriors for his ambition." "Traitor!" hissed a taller guardian, his armor intricately marked. "You were judged and wanting. Where is the Cathar who dared interfere with justice?" Lyra fought like a woman possessed. A whirlwind of grace and fury Caden had never witnessed, fiercely defending his weakened form. Her blade, an extension of her soul, was a storm of war, dancing too swiftly for the eye to track. Abruptly, a sharp burning sensation pierced Caden's left shoulder, distinct from the Cathar's ceaseless agony. A guardian circled to flank him, weapon raised. Lyra, sensing his peril, intercepted the blow, but the selfless move left her exposed. "Lyra, behind you!" Caden's warning ripped from his throat. She spun, barely avoiding a lethal strike, yet a guardian wounded Caden's leg with a glancing blow. Caden's pained cry echoed in Lyra, who felt a phantom blow to her leg, an unexpected, visceral connection. That split second of shared agony cost her everything. A guardian struck her with his sword hilt, sending her violently against the canyon wall, unconscious. Midnight-colored blood trickled from her temple. The guardians advanced, weapons raised. Their leader reached toward the pulsing wound on Caden's chest, where the Cathar had taken hold. "The sentence must be fulfilled," the guardian intoned, his voice emotionless. "The balance must be restored." Operating on raw instinct and adrenaline, Caden rolled, frantically grabbing luminescent moss from the canyon floor. He hurled it into the lead guardian's face, the moss exploding into a cloud of spores that clung to his mask, temporarily blinding him. In the ensuing confusion, Caden desperately dragged himself and the unconscious Lyra deeper into the canyon's labyrinth of narrow passages. His medical training guided him along the path of least resistance, using the rock's natural contours to create distance from their relentless pursuers. Reaching a chilling dead end, Caden understood his sole agonizing option. Concentrating on the Cathar, he deliberately pressed the wound, intensifying the pain. Agony threatened blackness, but he clung, feeling the symbiote's energy flare like a beacon. As he'd hoped, the guardian sensed it, turning towards him, crucially, away from Lyra. Using himself as bait, he lured them into a precarious passage where the canyon walls were unstable. A single, carefully placed shot from his sidearm unleashed a cascade of rocks, sealing the passage, creating a temporary barrier. It wouldn't hold them long, but bought him precious time to return to Lyra. Lyra awoke to Caden leaning over her, gently dressing her head wound. His face was pale from blood loss, but his eyes burned with fierce determination. "I distracted them," he rasped, voice barely a whisper. "Lured them into a narrow passage, caused a rock slide. We have a few hours at most." She looked at his caring hands, understanding their connection had become more than a transferred curse. In his eyes, she saw not pity, but profound respect, and in hers, he saw injustice demanding to be fought. "You risked your life," she whispered, fingers gently tracing the bandage. "Again." "Old habits," he replied with a weary smile. "Besides, we have a pressing date with a general, don't we?" She shook her head in disbelief. "You humans," she murmured. "I've never understood your capacity for levity in the face of death." "It's not joking," he said, his expression serious. "It's choosing to live fully, until the very end." "Speaking of which," he grimaced, as the Cathar sent a fresh wave of agony through him. "Tell me more about this Vorlog. I need to know exactly who we're going after." As Lyra recounted her former rival's betrayal, Caden studied her face. The subtle shifts, the way her amber eyes darkened mentioning warriors lost to Vorlog's ambition. Despite their vast differences, pain was a universal language they understood all too well. They found Vorlog's trail through a stroke of luck. A patrol of his personal guard passed dangerously close to their hiding place. Through the still desert air, their voices drifted. They spoke of the general's movements, his new fortress nestled within a dormant volcanic caldera to the north. Harnessing geothermal power, he fortified his forces. Lyra translated for Caden. The crater, a natural stronghold with a single heavily guarded entrance, seemed impenetrable. But Caden, despite his weakening strength, wouldn't yield. Examining the data on the symbiont, the data Lyra had provided, and his own sensations, he made a terrifying discovery. "The Cathar doesn't merely feed on pain," he whispered, as they observed the fortress from a ridge above. Smoke curled from the volcano's heart, the very source of Vorlog's power. It consumed life force, released through suffering. It could be tricked, overloaded. Their plan, A desperate gamble, nearly suicidal, was their only option. They waited until the darkest night, when 2 moons had set, leaving only the pale blue light. Using Lyra's precise knowledge of guard rotations and Kaidan's ingenious distractions, they infiltrated the fortress. Kaidan, repurposing medical supplies into crude explosives, created the chaos needed to bypass the outer defenses. But deeper within, the Cathar intensified, as if sensing its original host. Unbearable agony forced Kaidan to his knees, time and time again. Lyra, her face a mask of resolve mingled with guilt, helped him rise, each time. "Time's running out," she whispered, witnessing the horrifying spread of the Cathar's affliction. Black veins spread like a spiderweb across Kaidan's chest, his skin turning gray, his breathing shallow. The Cathar was consuming him faster than anticipated. Then something unexpected occurred. As they navigated the fortress's labyrinthine halls, Kaidan felt a powerful pull, a directional force emanating from the Cathar. The symbiont was responding to Lyra, seeking its initial host. "I feel you," he gasped, pressing against a wall to avoid a patrol. "The Cathar. It's a compass, pointing directly to you." A searing wave of pain drove him to his knees. The world blurred. He wasn't in the fortress anymore. He stood in a vast chamber, crystalline walls surrounding a semicircle of stern-faced warriors in ceremonial armor. In the center, a younger Vorlo, his expression grim rather than cruel. Vorlo's voice echoed, "Commander Lyra, you disobeyed a direct order. The settlement was to be sacrificed for the greater good." Lyra's voice, Kaidan's own, responded, "Innocence. There is no honor in such a victory." Vorlo's face filled his vision. "You are my finest student. Don't make me do this." Then, the abyss. The Cathar's entry. The sickening sensation. Darkness. Pain. Kaidan gasped, jolted back to the fortress corridor, Lyra's hands gripping his shoulders, her eyes wide with concern. "You saw it," she whispered. A statement, not a question. "My sentencing," he nodded, still reeling from the vivid memory. The Cathar blended their memories. "Then you understand what 4 years were to me, what I lost." Her expression remained unreadable. A wave of pain struck Lyra, mirroring Kaidan's agony. But within the pain, a different vision. A medical academy. The crushing weight of an oath broken. The agonizing loss of Rico's life. "Your friend," she said softly. "You couldn't save him." Kaidan's eyes widened. "You saw Rico." "The connection is reciprocal," she replied. "The Cathar is binding us in ways I never imagined when I bore it." "Then let's use it," Kaidan said, his voice unwavering. Despite the agony, they stood united. Together. The final clash with Vorlog erupted in the very core of the geothermal station, amidst the symphony of hissing pipes and swirling mists. The general was not as Kaidan had envisioned. Smaller than Lyra, his azure skin a touch lighter, a mere hint of lavender. Yet his bearing was undeniably imposing, his amber eyes sharp and chillingly astute. "Lyra," he murmured, his voice a surprising caress. "You should have remained lost. It would have been a gentler fate." "Gentleness was never your hallmark, Farog," she countered, her blade a gleaming promise of defiance. "Nor was truth. Tell him. Confess how you gambled away our warriors for your own ascent." Vorlog's laughter cracked like fractured ice. "And who will heed you? A disgraced exile and a human burdened by your own ruin." He unsheathed his own weapon, a blade thrumming with potent energy. "I have ascended to supreme command. I am beyond reach." His gaze fell upon Kaidan, appraising the human with stark calculation. "Your new companion is fading, Lyra. The Cathar was never meant to coexist with human biology. You can feel it, can't you? The relentless decay." He advanced, his movements predatory, encircling them. "I instilled in you a greater understanding than to forge attachments. They are vulnerabilities to be ruthlessly exploited." "You imparted much," Lyra responded, her posture echoing his, the student unconsciously mirroring her master's stance. "Lessons to cherish, and lessons to vehemently resist." "Still the dreamer," Vorlog scoffed, "still clinging to the notion that mercy has a place in conflict. This is precisely why I had to sever you. Our people cannot sustain your misplaced sentimentality." He moved with the same liquid grace as Lyra, but there was a fundamental difference, precision, born of calculation, not emotion. Each of his assaults was a familiar echo to Lyra, patterns she had drilled relentlessly under his tutelage. Now, those very lessons were turned against her. Recall the sixth form, Lyra? He taunted as their blades met. Equilibrium before triumph. Sever the limb to safeguard the heart. I remember all, she retorted, parrying with a maneuver he had gifted her decades prior, including what you conveniently suppressed. Honor before expediency. He effortlessly overwhelmed the weakened Caden, discarding him like a shattered plaything. Caden crashed against a bank of machinery, the impact sending fresh jolts of agony through his frame as the Cathar feasted on his torment. Have you come to meet your end, traitor? Borlaug taunted, advancing on Lyra, who stood unyielding, though Caden could discern the fear flickering in her eyes. Not for herself, he realized, but for him. Caden struggled to rise, his strength utterly depleted. The Cathar had siphoned too much of his life force, his vision blurred, an encroaching darkness consuming his periphery. He knew he had mere moments, perhaps seconds, before his body succumbed entirely. Lyra cast a fleeting glance at Caden, sprawled on the ground, barely conscious. Her amber eyes mirrored the fiery glow of the geothermal vents, transforming them into molten gold. In that shared glance, he witnessed her decision solidify, and through their deepening bond, he felt her resolve forge into an unshakable will. No, she declared, her voice steady and clear. I have come to reclaim what is mine. With an unearthly cry, a testament to 3 years of accumulated agony, Lyra shadowed forward, not towards Vorlog, but towards Caden. Vorlog, stunned by this unexpected maneuver, faltered. That moment of indecision cost him his advantage. Lyra reached Caden, and with movements too rapid to track, wrenched the spear from his chest. The spear, not a physical weapon, but the very essence of the Cathar, the symbiotic burden that had manifested when they desperately needed a defense. For an instant, an overwhelming sense of relief washed over him. The pain vanished. His strength surged back, a revitalizing tide. A profound lightness enveloped him. The absence of torment was so absolute, so perfect, that he nearly wept with pure elation. He could breathe without the searing sensation of his chest being ripped asunder. He could move without stars exploding behind his eyes. He was liberated. He had endured the unbearable. And now, it was finished. He could simply walk away, leave this alien world behind, find his path back to his own people. This was not his battle, not his war. He had paid more than enough for his rash act of compassion. And Lyra crumpled to her knees, her body trembling with the returning torment. The wound on her chest reopened, pulsing with shadow. Her face contorted in the familiar agony he had borne for weeks, now amplified. The Cathar had grown stronger, more ravenous during its time within him. Run, she gasped through clenched teeth, her eyes finding his. You are free. Go! Her body convulsed as the symbiont reasserted its dominion, tearing into her with renewed ferocity. Freed from the curse, Caden reverted to his true self, an elite soldier. His medical training. His training had etched within him not just the art of healing, but an intimate knowledge of where the body was most vulnerable. Caden moved with an almost spectral blur of speed and a chilling precision that left Vorlog no time to even register the attack. The confrontation was terrifyingly brief, brutally decisive. Caden emerged victorious. The traitorous general lay at his feet, unconscious, but mercifully alive. Yet Caden's gaze was not fixed on his fallen foe. It was drawn, inescapably, to Lyra. She was succumbing, the symbiont, having returned to her ravaged form, now consuming her from within. It had swelled, grown monstrously potent and ravenous during its forced absence. He surged to her side, gathering her fragile form into his arms. Her skin cooled rapidly, the vibrant azure dimming to a muted, ashen gray. The wound blossoming on her chest pulsed with a dark, malevolent energy, expanding ominously with every fading beat of her heart. I'm sorry, she whispered, her voice barely a breath. I didn't know it would be like this. Hush, he murmured, gently brushing a strand of her metallic hair from her face. His eyes fell upon the Cathar spear, manifested once more on the floor beside them, then back to her. He glanced down at his own chest, flawlessly unmarked, feeling the profound absence of pain, a forgotten freedom he now cherished. He reached out, his fingers tracing the smooth, unbroken skin where his own wound had been, savoring the miraculous sensation. He looked at his hands, a medic's hands, hands that had failed Rico, hands that had saved Lyra once, only to unwittingly condemn her anew. His sacred oath was to preserve life, yet he knew he could not save hers without inextricably binding their fates. "A medic's solemn vow," he murmured, his voice soft yet resonant, "isn't merely to mend flesh. It is to share the profound weight of pain. I cannot lift all of your agony, Lyra, but I swear by every fiber of my being, you will not endure it alone for a single moment longer." He did not, however, take all of it. He seized the spear, and before anyone could intercede, he drove it deep into his own thigh. The searing pain, a familiar adversary, flared, almost a perverse welcome. Yet this time was different. He commanded it, shaped its raw intensity, becoming its master instead of its prisoner. The grotesque wound on Lyra's chest did not vanish, but visibly receded, shrinking by half, its mortal threat instantly diminished. The pulsating darkness within it muted to a dull, manageable throb, and in that very instant, an identical, smaller wound manifested on Caden's thigh. The pain returned, piercing yet bearable, utterly shared. Their gazes met, two beings now linked by twin wounds, by shared agony, yet for the first time, truly, irrevocably unbound. "You could have let me die," she said, her voice stronger now, laced with something akin to awe. "That was never an option," he replied, his conviction absolute. They secured Vorlog with his very own restraints, Lyra extracting his confession through methods Caden grimly chose not to observe. The damning evidence would suffice to clear her name, though whether her rigid people would embrace it remained a stark question. They departed Viridia aboard Vorlog's captured vessel, a sleek ship that responded to Lyra's touch with an almost sentient eagerness. The revelation of Vorlog's treason sent seismic shockwaves through her culture, yet Lyra remained an exile, and Caden, a perplexing stranger, an anomaly. The cosmos unfurled before them, vast and indifferent, yet they were now unshackled by world or loyalty. They became true wanderers, their boundless path set for the untamed stars. The future remained a shimmering enigma, but they possessed a vessel, a hard-won justice, and, most profoundly, each other. One quiet night, suspended in the silence of deep space, distant stars painting intricate patterns across the viewport, he tended to the wound on her chest, and she, with equal care, attended to the one on his thigh. Their wounds, a singular pain shared between two souls. Caden applied a soothing salve of his own making, a precise blend of human medicine and the curious, potent herbs Lyra had taught him to identify. His fingers moved with practiced reverence around the edges of her wound, which pulsed now with a softer, less menacing beat, the burden mercifully divided. "It hurts," he murmured, stating a simple fact without complaint, as she mirrored his movements, treating his thigh with the identical mixture. "I know," she replied, and there was no trace of bitterness in her voice, only profound acceptance, and perhaps something infinitely more. The soft, ethereal blue light from a nearby nebula bathed their small cabin in a gentle, otherworldly glow. Their shadows merged on the wall behind them, two distinct silhouettes becoming one unified form. He gazed upon her, this enigmatic alien warrior who had transformed from patient to companion, from burden to... what? No single word in any known language could encapsulate the profound, intricate bond that had woven itself between them. It was something far beyond mere friendship, deeper than obligation, transcending even the potent connection forged through shared suffering. "But it's easier than carrying your pain alone," he said finally, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra offered him a true smile then, a fragile, beautiful bloom in the quiet darkness. And beneath the silent gaze of distant stars, Caden understood. This shared pain was not a burden, not a curse, but the most unbreakable bond in the entire, boundless universe. She set aside the medical supplies, her gaze locked with his, and reached out. Their hands met between them, slender blue fingers intertwining with human ones, a living bridge between worlds, built on an understanding no one else could ever comprehend. They sat in the profound quiet, each keenly aware of the other's agony, both the relentless physical torment of the Cathar and the deeper, ancient wounds etched upon their souls. This was no finite ending, merely a new beginning. The pain would persist, the symbiont would forever hunger. But now they would confront it together, keepers of each other's suffering, guardians of each other's enduring hope. Their shared resilience marked the tender dawn of their bond, a powerful testament to their enduring connection.